we are streaming live from World Expo in Dubai. World Expos have been the nexus for showing future solutions for over 150 years. And that we're here should not be seen as a coincidence. The panelists from Soltech Energy Solutions, Nilar and Ferroamp have deployed their decentralized energy system for the future here in the forest at the Swedish Pavilion in Dubai. And with this, I would like to introduce my panelists, Mats Karlström, business developer at Ferroamp, Martin Holstner, key account manager at Nilar, and finally, Christoffer Caesar, CEO of the company Saltic Energy Solutions. Welcome back to Dubai, I will say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, what are the possibilities for real estate developers and owners to take actions for the energy transition through decentralized energy networks? Christoffer.
Thank you. That's a quite big question, but first of all, thank you for inviting us to Dubai. The perfect place to talk about solar energy, where the sun always shines. So, talking about energy transition, I think we should start at a national level, where we've seen for the last 10 years thermal power, traditional power plants like nuclear, being phased out of the system and replaced by wind power and solar, which are volatile sources. So what we've seen is a big challenge in the grid, with more fluctuating pricing and higher grid connection costs. So of course this affects all property owners, and it's outside of the control of the property owner or the investor. So on national levels, we are talking about hybrid systems where we combine large storage facilities and solar and wind. And I think we need to take actions and look into the same kind of thinking, but on a local level in each property. So the actions I see, to answer the question, is that, of course, locally produced solar in each property, storage, and smart control. That creates a decentralized network within each building and transforming the building from, let's say, a passive building into a smart energy hub in the local society, making it more profitable and reducing the loads on the grid.
And Martin, what is your view on this?
I think it's just to add to what is the possibilities is to look at the grid, just as you said, that we see challenges when these intermittent energy sources come in with solar and wind. There is a tsunami of challenges rising with the grid. And to be able to change this from challenges into opportunities, you should look at this complete solution. And from my point of view, of course, you should add an energy storage solution to be enable to activate and move from threats into opportunities, from weaknesses into strength regarding your energy system in your property.
And Mats?
Well, I think the system perspective is interesting because if you look at the electrical system globally, the Nordics and Sweden, it's obvious that there is a system, some balance has to take place because we have consumers left and right and producers left and right, and we are changing that dramatically right now. But in facilities, quite often, we only look at products. We only look at PV as a product, energy storage as a product, and all the charge boxes that we now install, they are separate products. We need to take a look at how do we connect them into a system so they can be a system strength in the next step.
So it's the bundled solutions that are the opportunities here.
The combination of these different features that combine create greater value for the property owner and for the future electric grid than if they were just standing alone as separate products.
Okay, fine. And Christoffer, you're representing the solar energy perspective in this. And how could the energy use be optimized through solar energy?
Yeah, so solar energy, I would say it's a maturing technology. And of course, looking at the property perspective now, not on the national level, of course, we should produce solar energy locally. It used to be, let's say, a nice to have. But I would say today it's an obligation for a property owner to install solar, both for the climate change, but also for our coming generations. And solar is the lowest cost form of, I mean, together with wind. So production costs are very low. We can put it on the roof, or we can integrate it in the facade. I usually sort of compare solar to a very loyal tenant, one that stays for 30, 40 years, just paying the bill each year. So with that said, you said optimizing solar. I think we used to optimize our solar in the properties based on how much energy we'd use during the day, I mean the daytime. Now with these technologies, we should look at how much energy we can produce to use all around the sort of 24 hours. And not just limiting it to what can be used during daytime. I mean, we've seen a lot of big roofs where only parts of them are covered by solar due to this. So I think there we need to see a change, or there will be a change. And so when saying optimizing solar, I would rather say maximizing solar and optimizing the building with the sort of smartness and the storage.
And storage seems to be the key here because the sun doesn't shine all the time, etc. I guess that's so, and how could we handle it?
Well, energy storage is, as we see it, as I said previously, the enabler to optimize the building. So this is definitely a key to utilize all of our technologies. To have a safe and sturdy and robust battery together with efficient solar panels and a very smart energy management.
I think the key is really to utilize all the benefits that a battery can provide. It's not only related to solar, for instance, even though it's easy to understand that if you charge with solar instead of sending it into the grid and use it at night, that's an easy to understand concept. But the real value from a battery is to control when and how we use the energy from the grid. Because it can be much, much, much more valuable to discharge a battery during a power capacity peak than just discharge a battery on a regular level, so to say. So the smartness comes from measuring, because then you know. But even better, if you know something and you do act on it, that's where you get the real value.
So, but if we go back to a grid perspective, so could we, with this system, avoid substantial investments into new power lines?
It could definitely be a support, because what we see now with this development with more and more solar and more wind, of course, transporting energy is a challenge. But when you have the local production, you should mainly focus on using it locally, and therefore reduce the stress and reduce the usage, and also in that case optimize the usage of the grid. So what you create together with the battery is the more flexible solution that not only wears the grid down, you can also help it and sustain it. So the short answer is yeah.
But could you give us an example of project and the results, benefits showed with this project?
Yeah, we did it. We have done a project together with Ferroamp and also have other where we installed batteries in separate properties and use them together in a virtual power plant solution where you can optimize in this specific area the usage and use the battery capacity to support the grid when it needs supporting. And it could be both for charging the battery to release overproduction from neighbors or support the grid when it's underproducing. So we have seen this, and it's very interesting to see how this can support the grid in an even larger perspective in the future.
And Mats, I heard you said smart and smartness here. It seems that this is very smart. And are you the brain behind this?
No, no, I'm not. We have lots of brilliant colleagues at Ferroamp. But I think what's really smart in the way that we approach it is that from a hardware point, we use a topology that allows our customers to start small if they want to, and then add features, functions. I like to call it an energy local area network, just like we have on a computer side, so to say, data LAN. We have energy LAN. And for us, for instance, to add another Nilar battery into a facility is as dramatic as adding a printer on floor 2 The moment after you install the printer, it's recognized and everyone can use that printer. In our system, it's scalable and it's flexible. I would say it's as close as possible to plug and play as you can come in this kind of technology. So that's smart.
Yeah. And is this financial viable? Does this increase profits for real estate owners and developers?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, but let me elaborate a little bit about it, because also when you were talking about the modular part and the plug and play, and we can add on more batteries and utilizing the batteries in a better way, I mean, we already now see some of the grid owners and grid operators, for example, the TSO, the transmission operator, paying fees to local battery owners to support the grid. I mean, that's 10 years ago, that would be unheard of, that a local property actually supports the grid and the grid function, which is sort of the big government grid. So that, of course, is a new revenue stream to our properties if we can manage this and an extra income. So of course, the other parts of the profit, I mean, producing solar, we talked about, that's a low-cost production, and a very cheap way of producing energy locally. But adding on these other multiple income streams, as Mats also mentioned, basically we produce solar and we store it, or we buy from the grid when it's cheap. It's like any trading. So buy at night, use during the day when the cost of buying energy is extremely high. So I mean, the problem here is not that it's profitable. The problem is that it's new, it's complex, and it's a bit difficult to understand all the different components. Is it bankable? Can we finance these solutions? I mean, that's where we are today. The technology is there, and we can see the profits. So the challenge today is to really package it and make it understandable to the investors and taking the investment decisions.
So what I understand here of your thinking is that the bottleneck of installing this system is more of the perceived risk from an investor perspective and real estate developer owners. So what?
Yeah, I would definitely. There's a gap, I would say, between what we see as the risks and the perceived risk due to this being new technology and a bit difficult matter. And I think Mats said it very well. We usually have a point of view looking at the technologies, each and every one of them stand alone. But here we are looking at a system solution and grasping that for, say, a local property owner owning 1, 2, 3 properties. It's quite complex. So I would say the risk of solar is quite low, and probably the perceived risk, since it's maturing, is quite low. But the perceived risk of these new solutions are probably higher than what they are. So it's our responsibility together, and that's why we have formed this partnership to package these systems into sort of a solution. So the property owner and the investor, they don't need to consider each individual technological solution behind it. And then maybe add on a smart business model to that.
But if your neighbors doesn't have this system, how could you dare to do this?
I think the early adopters today are what we rely on when it comes to more advanced function. I think PV solar, you don't need to be an early adopter there. It's past that threshold. For batteries, yes. But as you see energy prices fluctuating as they've done recently, of course people start to look at it. We also have very good grants in Sweden or tax breaks for installing these kind of technologies. And all of those items together add up to a better story, a better cohesive story. So I think the challenge for us is to make it understandable, to make it credible, and also to make it easier for the customer, the end customer at the end of the day. They should be able to continue live their life. They could come home at night. They should be able to put the plug into the electric car, go in and do the dishes, washes, and so on. Don't worry about the electric bill going crazy because of power draw or buying and selling at the wrong time. We can use technology to make that easier, automatic.
I would like to add to what what you said previously regarding the new revenue streams and the big grid that you were relying on. If we look at the market today, as we have seen, the latest, when grid is starting to be more stressed, you start up these gas turbines or oil power plants or that supports the grid. But what we see is this transition, that the grid owners, they look into the local energy storage to find this help to support. So we are looking into this transition, going from these huge centralized energy supporters to use the local and get the same results, or maybe even better.
Great.
We have a tendency in general to look at the cost right now and the benefits and what is the business model right now. But let us think about the fact that we are very, very early in a very dramatic energy transition. We only have seen the first little glimpse of what is to come. So I think it's time now to start prepare for what's coming. It's risk-free already. Even if your system would be break-even, it will only improve. If we take one example, there are simulations being made right now looking at only at the grid support that we're talking about, frequency balance as it's called. It could pay for at least half of the battery just by that service alone. Then you have the other half can take care of the local requirements. And that's how dramatic it is. You can scale this up much, much, much faster than rebuilding the whole electric grid. That's the dramatic difference between a centralized electric system and a decentralized system.
And you asked about bottlenecks, so sort of wrap that up. I would say this is actually the challenge we're talking about here. You are talking about fees for frequency controls. We're talking about batteries. We're talking about sharing electricity. So it is a complex matter. So I think that's where our partnership and what we can bring from Soltech is the integration of that system solution, where we take the best technical providers and we put it all together in one package for our customers and for the property owners. So for them, they just have one interface and they sort of have one bill or one revenue stream, and we package all of that. And I think that's the strength of what we are doing together.
Good. And now we will have a quick glance of your installed energy system here in Dubai in the Swedish Pavilion. So enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Swedish Pavilion at Expo 2020. My name is Oscar, and I work for Ferroamp. We are part of a team of companies that consist of Ferroamp, Nilar and Soltech. And today I'm going to give you a tour of the Swedish Pavilion and the smart energy system. Here we have about 1,000 square meters of solar panels that harness the power of the sun and feeds it into the pavilion. We also have the solar string optimizers that optimizes every solar string and makes sure that we get 100% clean power to the pavilion. And now we're going to go take a look at the brain of the smart energy installation. Come with me. And now we're in the heart of the installation. Up here we can see the power coming down from the roof to these electrical panels. And over here we have the Nilar 84 kilowatt hour batteries. They are nickel metal hydride. And you might ask, what is the power of having batteries in this installation? Well, I'll tell you. The purpose is that we can store solar power produced during the day and then consume it during the night when the installation has the most need for extra power. And this is the brain of the installation. This is the Energy Hub Inverter. It has the purpose of converting the electricity produced by the solar panels on the roof and the energy stored by the batteries from DC to AC of the pavilion electricity system. It measures the electricity consumed by the pavilion second by second and gives the pavilion total control of their energy produced, the energy consumed in the pavilion, and the energy stored in the batteries. Okay everyone, now we're down here again by the Saltic solar panels. This system gives the Swedish Pavilion locally produced power, locally stored power in the batteries, and smart control over their energy usage. A system like this gives us a future-proof, sustainable building. Smart and climate clever.
this looks amazing. For example, the facades of the solar panel. I've never seen something like this before. Christopher, tell us what was this?
Yeah, so what you saw was one of our own products in Soltech, the Saltic Facade, which actually, it's nothing you put outside of a building, it actually is the wall. So we replace one material in a construction, like for example, a concrete or a plastered facade, which has quite high CO2 emissions. So we remove that one and we put our panels instead. So that actually is the wall. So with that, we save CO2s and we save the cost of the traditional wall, making these facade solutions, the payback time quite short and very interesting from a profitability perspective also, not just the CO2 perspective. So this is actually what Soltech was founded around, the building integrated PV. So we are one of the leaders and pioneers in this technology. And today we offer that to our customers, and these facades are actually becoming more and more popular right now. So that in combination with traditional solar on roof and smart systems and electrical installations, that's sort of what forms our company today.
And is this only available for small-scale buildings, or is it available for large-scale, tall buildings? Like
we have a lot of them. We have a lot of them.
Okay.
So no, but it's more a matter of not the size, but how difficult it is to assemble the panels. So I would probably say that we usually look at buildings like this one, the 10-meter high or something like that. But going the higher we go, of course, it's more expensive to build. But it is available for any kind of building. So if there is a wall, there's a need for our product.
And I know that aesthetic and design is close to your heart, and I heard you say that design and aesthetic is a key for creating a sustainable, attractive city as well.
Yes, definitely. So let me just see how to form that answer. But of course, what you see, I mean, the visible aspect of the property, of course, shows that it is a climate friendly. There is local production. So from the visibility, I think it's very important, taking a stake and showing that you're serious about the climate change. And I think it looks really good. And it's available in any kind of colors. You can get your logo within it, or the same color as your brand. So I think from a sustainability perspective, it's something that shows that you've taken the stand, and it starts the discussions, and we can start this mindset transformation that we can all be part of the energy transition.
And Mats, guide us through the videos. What else did we see here?
Yeah, the optimization takes place close to the panels up on the rooftop. And our topology is built, as Oscar said, on a DC grid. The local energy system, if you like, a complementary to the usual AC electrical system, that allows us to take the PV energy from the roof down to the lower floors, where we also have the batteries and the converter. That itself allows us to be very flexible. So when I mentioned earlier, it's easy for us to add another battery. Well, now we have 3 batteries in that room. If we add another 2 or 3, it's not a dramatic difference in setup, but the functionality is quite dramatic, because all of a sudden you have twice the storage. Now, prices on batteries go down, and cost for power will go up. So down the road, you will be able to then modify your system, adapt it to the new business values for energy storage, and to respond on increasing cost. So that's really what it comes down to. So just as the PV panels here have multiple functions, you have PV production, plus it's a facade and looks nice. Same thing with batteries. We can list 5 different beneficial areas where you can use batteries. If you only use it for PV storage, so to say, it's only one of the functions. So we can add more functions if we take them into a system consideration. So that's really what the Ferroamp is about. So the local LAN with a local energy router, or the brain, the director of the system, is the key to be able to control.
You also mentioned future-proofed.
Yeah.
What, please?
Well, one part is, of course, physically to add more hardware into the facility without too much of rebuilding. But I would say every Ferroamp system is connected to the internet, which means that down the road, when we talk about frequency services or smart use of charge infrastructure behind the meter in the building, we can add software through that portal so we can increase the functionalities with business models that we don't see today. It's only software. Just as you would download a new app to your hardware and all of a sudden you have new functionality in your telephone, it's the same thing with the Ferroamp system. There will be multiple new business models down the road. And as a customer, you can choose which one is suitable for me.
So we did have some questions sent to us prior to this event, and one is from our real estate developer in New York. So I will start with the first question. So how are you differentiated from other solutions?
Yeah, I can start from our part. Of course, we are not a lithium battery, just as Oscar said in the video. We are nickel metal hydride. So what we prioritize in our solution, of course, everyone's prioritized, but what we can offer in a broader perspective is increased safety and higher environmental friendliness. So we can look at a battery that is more safe and sturdy and better when it comes to recyclability and longer lasting. So this is what makes us stand out quite much when it comes to the energy storage market.
Yeah, for us, I mentioned some of the features or benefits here, but I would add to it is that we see now batteries, we see PV, and we see EV charging. Next step will be more powerful EV charging as we get the requirement for fast and efficient charging in city environment. We will add that function so you can charge an electric vehicle much faster than the onboard charger, for instance. That's number one. Number two, down the road we see hydrogen, fuel cells and so on. We see that as a part of a system instead of as a single product. If it's part of our system, it's much more cost effective. You don't need a humongous fuel cell to take care of power capacity peaks because we already have a battery in the facility taking care of the power peaks. But a small fuel cell could be a dramatic improvement down the road. We don't have it now, but we're close. So there are a number of those devices that you can add to the story down the road. And that's why I also think that making a strategic choice how you want to build your new energy system, electrical energy system, is important because that's really where you start your journey. And the choice of building it smart or as a separate product that you later on have to control multiple products over time. That's
so you offer more of a holistic
system,
system than single components.
And speaking of future possibilities, also what we see with our product is that we have the possibility, and we'll introduce a product that in the future can be reconditioned on site, so that you have a battery that can stand after you cycle it enough. You can refurbish it on site and use it again and again, so we can have a battery that we can very much say reuse, don't replace. So we don't need to seek for a second life, we can continue the life.
Very strong.
No, so I agree with you too, what you say about taking the holistic view of the system, and not just on the technical part, but also on the sustainability part. Here with these products, are super smart products from Ferroamp, where we don't need to build a new system, but we can add on. That also saves on both on costs and the more we add on, the more cost efficient we are, because we don't need new separate systems. So, but it also saves, of course, on the CO2 and environmental impact. Same with your batteries. And looking at us as the integrator in our panels, it's the same kind of discussions. What panels do we use from a sustainability perspective? How do we put all this together? and in the end also add on, let's say, the financial engineering to that system to make sure we have the smart business models around it. I think all those components makes this quite a unique setup.
And the second question was, how do you reach scale, given these solutions are very building dependent with different ownerships?
So that's almost a double question. So reaching scale with the local grids, as much mentioned, I think that's a mindset issue, and that can be done in the local community. It's more a matter of multiplying these and reaching out to the property owners, explaining the technology and the advantages. I don't see the bottleneck there.
I could say our technology is we have exactly the same system functionality in a small villa as we have in a large commercial industry or a commercial building. It's the way that we build our system, we can scale it up. So we can have PV, small energy storage, we can have large systems. So that's kind of address the flexibility required for different kinds of buildings. The other part I think is important is that we have partners that actually talk to the customer, understand the customer need, and translate that need into a physical installation, including pre-calculations, simulations, and so on, and then take this whole process to a finished product. And maybe beyond the commissioning, maybe they have services for helping the customer to utilize the full power of the system down the road for years to come. It should be easy to have one of these systems. Otherwise, we have failed.
Good. So, and we do have two questions from a Swedish viewer, and he or she has heard that the Swedish government are going to deregulate the market for electrical grids. Is this true, and how will it affect your company?
Well, I guess it's our question. It's actually already deregulated, so to say. The decision came just 2, 3, 4 days ago, November 3rd. I don't know which date it is today. But so the decision went public on November 3rd that we are allowed to, within a property limit, a legal facility limit, if you have multiple buildings, we can connect them together. Even though each building have their own grid connection, we can then connect them in a local energy sharing grid.
So share energy with the neighbors?
I would say it's not that much about the neighbors. It's typically for a
house
association or public housing properties, where you actually consume your own energy instead of exporting it to the grid, and you pay for your own electricity coming from your own PV panels in the building next over. So it's more about allowing for self-consumption, increased self-consumption, making it smart, making the investment better, I would say. So that's the first step. Down the road, we hope to see energy communities. We hope to see new regulations for microgrids and so on. But for now, this is a great breakthrough for us.
And for us also, we've done a pilot project with this technology where we had 5 or 7 different houses on the same property, all of them paying for their own grid connection, and quite high costs to all these, because that's traditionally how it's been built. So installing the Ferroamp solution and a battery solution, we now share over a DC grid power. So one of the buildings had a huge roof where we installed a big solar plant, but no consumption. It was like a stable, totally empty in there, except for the horses, but no energy consumption. And then energy consumption was in other buildings. So we shared there, and now we look into actually taking 2 or 3 of these houses out of the grid and not even paying that fixed fee, because we have enough power in the DC grid and in the other existing connections, and at the same time reducing peaks, levelizing with a battery storage. So this technology is already there when we see it, and now we can do it in a much larger scale with this new legislation. So it is working.
Yeah, and the motivation is really what we see here behind us, is that if we can increase the financial benefit for our facility owners to invest in this type of technology by combining and improving the profitability behind the meter, we will see more of these systems popping up. And the more of them we have, they can become the resource for the grid. Yeah, it's already started, but it will be even more dramatic as we go down the road. So it's strategic decision to move in this direction is really what we call for. It will be the future. Has to be the future.
Yeah. We are soon ending our great dialogue here, but to summarize the more practical advices for our audience, real estate developers and owners, what could they do? And please give me 1 or 2 examples each. And who would like to start?
Yeah, let me start then. Of course, installing solar, as we discussed, both on the roof and integrated in the facade if we build a new property, and maximizing it, looking at the future needs when we combine the technologies. So that's actually two advice in one. And making sure that we start to talk about the properties like local energy hubs and what benefit they can do to the local society. For example, providing EV charging infrastructures because we have enough energy within our building. So we start to become a resource for the local society. So taking that mindset, then it's actually quite cool to be a property developer because you're a part of developing your community and building the smart city bottom up instead of top down. So that's my advice.
Bottom-up approach.
Yeah.
And I can only agree to what you say, and also, of course, look at us as a system solution, where you don't only look into solar, you look into energy storage, and from our point, of course, where we focus on the safety and environmental friendliness in the battery solution. So keep that in mind when going into these kind of projects.
And I would like to challenge our listeners, viewers, to step over that threshold. If this sounds complicated and difficult, well, challenge yourself to really learn what we are talking about, what we are doing. Because if you don't, you'll be a victim to the changes that you see ahead of you. But if you own it, if you learn what we talk about, you can control the future through your investments. So get in contact with us, ask us. We gladly, happily will inform you, give you all the feedback you can get. We have lots of partners already that can help you realize these kind of systems in your facility. So a challenge back to you. Don't lean back. Come forward. Get on it.
Yeah. Let's go.
It's a good preacher.
Yeah.
But to summarize from a more high-level perspective, with this new mindset or decentralized energy system presented here today, will this accelerate the energy transition and create a better life?
Definitely.
Definitely. No, of course. I think having the holistic view on the decentralized level, that's what we talked about, looking at it bottom up, being part of the energy transition. I think we've heard a lot of good examples and proof that definitely will create sort of a better society and in the long run a better life for coming generations. And that in combination, of course, with the large-scale solar on grid levels, but even there, look at the hybrid solutions, try and adopt the same thinking in the large scale. And I think those two together will definitely create a renewable-driven grid and hopefully more stable pricing. And
yes.
So it's a long yes.
Yes.
It's a short yes.
It's a short yes. Now, of course, just like you said, we all need to change the perspective and step into this and see ourselves as a provider, our utility of our own, and of course use us. Take this into your mindset. That how can I be the utility where I live, and help and support the grid, not being only a consumer but a supporter.
at the end of the day, the electric grid is physics.
Yeah.
Really, it's electrons that have to move in cables through transformers and so on. Physics don't care about what people write in Facebook.
What?
No, it's shocking. No, but really, we have to realize that these are powers beyond our control that will evolve as we change our electric consumption and production patterns. And it's impossible to redesign the electric grid fast enough in order to keep up with the change in electrical vehicle implementation and so on. So at the end of the day, you don't want to be at the end of the rope, so to say. You want to be closer to control. And it's a what do you say, an active choice. Do you want to be in charge or do you want to be a victim? So it's really more fun as well. It's much more fun if you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Creating a more attractive property for
correct.
the tenants as well, and we are here. Technology is ready.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for being here in Dubai again. And thank you also to our listeners from all over the world and to the audience here in Dubai.